the discussion is just going to be on if less developed countries are going to be impacted more by climate change than richer, more developed countries. So I think I can agree with Michael's statement. Just I think one thing to consider is that geography does play a big role. So, for example, one underdeveloped or less developed country, the poorest country in Europe, actually, Moldova, will actually have a positive effect of climate change. Because they're one of the biggest producers of wine in Europe, and rising temperatures will help have their harvest more fruit, which will raise the quality of wine and also the production level of wine. Moldova has been producing wine for more than 5,000 years, and it's one of the biggest contributors to their economy. So climate change will actually, continental climate change will actually make more fertile soil and will help their harvests, which is a positive impact for Moldova because they're they're the poorest country in Europe. And then a country that will be a developed country that's actually going to have a significant impact is Switzerland, because the Alps are warming at 3 times the global average, and they are projected to continue to grow warmer. Glaciers are retreating, and mountain plants are migrating upwards in search of cooler climates, and this will have a huge impact on the snow industry. So tourism, tourism will have a huge effect on the Swiss economy. Summer skiing was once possible, but now it's more difficult because of retreating glaciers, and heavy rainfall and risk of flooding will also just remove any chance of artificial snow or snow being produced. So I think that that's just an example of an underdeveloped or less developed country having a positive effect, climate change having a positive effect on a less developed country, with a developed country such as Switzerland having a significant negative impact on the country's economy and also the well-being of its population.
I think that overall less developed countries will be impacted more because in less developed countries, most communities depend on agriculture as their source of income and food. And the main two impacts of climate change are either droughts or flooding, and they don't have the resources to deal with either of those, so it really negatively impacts their agriculture and they may not be able to grow crops.
I'd like to contest this point. I believe that infrastructure plays a large role in this, and developing countries don't have the infrastructure necessary, or infrastructure, or a lot of it, specifically if you look at developed countries. And climate change involves a lot of issues such as floodings or wildfires, which are very much costly in terms of the amount of repairs and damage that it has on society. And when you actually look at the impacts climate change has in terms of such catastrophes such as wildfires or floods, the amount of money that's been contributed towards actually repairing the damage that's been done is a lot higher in developed countries.
I think another thing, just to add on to what Roderick was saying real quick, is that developed countries do have the infrastructure. For example, in Dubai or the Netherlands, they can build flood walls to stop the country being flooded, wiping them off the map.
They have temporary solutions for that. In less developed countries, they don't really have any, so they can't really adapt to it, or
like in Micronesia.
I would definitely agree.
Where rising sea levels will actually remove Micronesia off the map.
Yeah, they don't have any ways to deal with it as developed countries.
Yeah, I would definitely agree to that. Especially sort of in the short term, sort of more developed countries can react quickly with different sort of resources they have, while it's less economically developed countries. Like for example, Myanmar in 2008, there was a cyclone and 140,000 people died because they just didn't have the infrastructure, just because they were just living in houses made of basically bamboo and leaves. They just got all wiped away, which would not have happened if they would have had adequate infrastructure in terms of housing. But since the country has basically just opened up a few years ago, it's still sort of at the very beginning of sort of becoming westernized. So I would say if that would have happened, I don't know, in Europe, in France or something, there would definitely have not been that many sort of deaths, injuries, because people just have houses that will just stand the heavy rainfall and wind, and also the government would have reacted much more quickly and effectively.
I think that it really depends on the scale of the country and the geographical location of the country. Because if you look at the United States, right? It has multiple climates and it's one big country, and it has multiple natural disasters occurring at like several times. And just because it's a large country, right? So a developed country which is small might be able to actually might be able to react quicker to natural disasters simply because of the scale of the country, right? The smaller it is, the easier it is to manage everyone. Whereas if you look at the United States with constant forest fires, we got hurricanes, and so on and so forth. As climate change progresses, I don't think the United States will be able to cope very well with it, simply because of the scale of the country. Although it might have the infrastructure to deal with it, it would literally spend all its resources reacting to such natural disasters, and it wouldn't really help because we have like issues like forest fires and hurricanes in like Hurricane Katrina, for example. Like they have the resources and capabilities to, I guess, minimize the damage, but whenever because in developed countries we have a large concentration of human population in certain urban areas, whenever natural disasters hits one of those, casualties will be far higher than a developed country with a very spread out population. So it really depends on the country and the variety of geographical factors and the land mass of the country.
A richer country can invest in research and development to prevent it in the future, and less developed countries, they just don't really progress any further.
Ooh.
Well, they don't make
Are you
any.
saying that less developed countries will? Ooh.
They'll make less development
Developing
because they need to spend all their money and their resources on that instead.
Well, do you think that, considering that more developed countries are the ones causing the majority of climate change, that they're the ones that are also going to be the most affected as well, from backlash from less developed countries as well?
I think a lot of the fact that they're contributing towards climate change doesn't mean that they'll have the most repercussions. For example, yeah, it affects worldwide, and I just think a lot of it has to do with the geographical location of the country.
Actually, I could agree with that.
Yeah. For example, what you said in Micronesia applies, and then also in Bangladesh it's trapped between the coast of Bengal and then also the Himalayas behind it, so it's prone to a lot of natural disasters already, and bringing the climate change will just make a lot more natural disasters occur, and also the rise in sea level will have huge repercussions on the amount of land they have, and it's already overpopulated, so they're going to face huge issues.
I'd like to elaborate on what Nifeng said earlier on, because I think it's a very important point. But I think in terms of discussing the impacts that developed countries will have in terms of climate change and how they may be slightly more significant, if you look at finding alternatives to climate change, specifically energy production and so forth, in terms of actually converting to making that change towards renewable energy sources and so on, it'll be a lot harder for developed countries to do that because they have all the infrastructure there already in order to facilitate the combustion of coal and so forth. And so if you look at developing countries, the infrastructure isn't there, and therefore it's less costly in order to install solar panels. And so if you look, there's obviously loads of different aspects towards this. The fact that obviously developed countries do have the necessary research and development as well as mitigation. They're able to mitigate a lot of these issues. But if you look at in the long run, especially looking at energy, which is one of the biggest investments that will take place in the future in terms of actually trying to mitigate climate change, I think that developing countries do have the upper hand in that case.